The story of Russia does not begin with a nation, a flag, or a capital city. It begins with rivers. Long before there was a Russia, the vast plains of Eastern Europe were a crossroads. Forest met steppe, north met south. Trade routes followed the great waterways, the Dnieper, the Volga, the Western Dvina, linking the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea and the Caspian. These rivers carried more than goods. They carried peoples, religions, and power. By the 9th century, Slavic tribes dominated this region. They farmed, hunted, traded, and lived in loose tribal confederations. They had no centralized state, no written laws, and no unified religion. That would change with the arrival of outsiders from the north. They were known as the Varangians, Viking traders and warriors from Scandinavia. Moving along the river routes, they established trading posts and extracted tribute from local tribes. According to later chronicles, in the year 862, the Slavs invited a Varangian leader named Rurik to rule over them in order to restore order. Whether this invitation truly occurred or was a later myth, Rurik became the founding figure of a ruling dynasty that would govern for over 7 centuries. Rurik established his base in Novgorod, a northern trading city tied closely to the Baltic world. After his death, power passed to his kinsman Oleg, who looked southward. In 882, Oleg captured the city of Kiev, strategically located on the Dnieper River, and declared it the capital of a new polity. This state would become known as Kievan Rus. Kievan Rus was not Russia in the modern sense. It was a loose federation of cities and territories ruled by members of the Rurikid dynasty. Power rested in control of trade routes rather than fixed borders. Kiev became wealthy by taxing commerce between Scandinavia and the Byzantine Empire, the richest state in the medieval world. Contact with Byzantium profoundly shaped Rus society. Trade brought luxury goods, literacy, and ideas. Byzantine missionaries introduced Christianity. At first, the Rus elites practiced a mix of pagan beliefs and Christianity, but in the late 10th century, religion became a tool of statecraft. Prince Vladimir of Kiev understood that a unified faith could strengthen his rule and align Rus with a powerful ally. According to legend, he evaluated several religions, including Islam, Judaism, and Western Christianity. He ultimately chose Eastern Orthodox Christianity, influenced by the splendor of Byzantine worship and political considerations. In 988, Vladimir was baptized and ordered the mass conversion of Kiev. Pagan idols were destroyed, churches were built. Christianity spread outward along the rivers. With baptism came literacy, as the Cyrillic script, developed by Byzantine missionaries, allowed religious texts to be translated into Slavic languages. This moment bound the Rus world spiritually and culturally to Byzantium. It also shaped Russia's future identity as an Orthodox Christian civilization, distinct from Catholic Western Europe and the Islamic world to the south and east. Under Vladimir and his successors, Kievan Rus reached its cultural and political height. His son, Yaroslav the Wise, codified laws in the Ruskaya Pravda, promoted education, and built monumental churches such as St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev. Dynastic marriages tied Rus princes to royal families across Europe. Yet beneath this prosperity lay structural weaknesses. Succession was not based on primogeniture. Instead, power rotated among male members of the dynasty. This system encouraged rivalry, civil war, and fragmentation. As trade routes shifted and local elites gained power, Kiev's dominance declined. By the 12th century, Kievan Rus had fractured into competing principalities. Novgorod developed into a semi-republic ruled by merchants and assemblies. Vladimir Suzdal rose in the northeast, laying the foundations for a future center of power. Kiev itself was repeatedly sacked, its prestige fading. This political fragmentation left the Rus lands vulnerable to an external force unlike any they had faced before. In the early 12th century, the Mongols erupted out of the Eurasian steppe. Led initially by Genghis Khan and later by his descendants, they created the largest contiguous empire in human history. In 1237, Mongol armies entered the Rus principalities. City after city fell. Rayan was destroyed. Vladimir was burned. Kiev was obliterated in 1240, its population slaughtered or enslaved. The Mongols did not occupy the land directly. Instead, they imposed a system of tribute and domination from their western khanate, known as the Golden Horde. For nearly 250 years, the Rus principalities existed under Mongol overlordship. Princes were required to travel to the Horde to receive permission to rule. Taxes were extracted brutally. Rebellions were crushed. This period would later be remembered as the Mongol Yoke. The Mongol impact on Rus development was profound and controversial. On one hand, the devastation delayed urban growth and cut Rus off from Western Europe. On the other, Mongol administrative practices influenced taxation, military organization, and autocratic rule. Crucially, the Mongols reshaped the internal balance of power. The northeastern principality of Moscow, once minor, gained prominence by cooperating with the Horde. They collected tribute on the Mongols' behalf, enriching themselves and weakening rivals. While political life suffered, the Orthodox Church endured. The Mongols generally tolerated religion, allowing the Church to grow in wealth and influence. Monasteries became centers of learning, culture, and spiritual authority. The Church would later play a key role in legitimizing centralized power. By the late 13th century, Mongol power began to wane. In 1380, Prince Dmitry of Moscow defeated a Mongol army at the Battle of Kulikovo. Although Mongol dominance continued for decades afterward, the psychological barrier had been broken. The era of Kievan Rus was over. In its place, a new political center was emerging that would transform the legacy of Rus into something far more centralized, autocratic, and expansive. The rise of Moscow would define the next chapter in the history of Russia.